If there was a single video to teach you the importance of keeping your kids safely strapped into the car, it would be this one. In this dashcam footage, the car in front of this driver has a terrible accident, with the trunk flying open, causing the baby girl inside the car to fall out of her seat and into the street. The child falls face first when she makes impact with the ground, and the distressed cries of the driver and their passenger can be heard as they immediately brake, hoping to hold up traffic to keep the kid in front of them safe. And if the impact wasn't already hard enough to look at, it gets worse. Because the poor child gets up from the ground and starts running towards the car, hoping to be reunited with her family and clearly needing comfort after that terrible scare, the child also starts running into the other lane of traffic in an attempt to catch up to the car, which could have been incredibly dangerous. Thankfully, the driver in the video stops the vehicle so that the passenger can get out of the car and protect the child from any oncoming traffic. And there is, fortunately, a happy ending, as the father of the child runs back for her, retrieving her safely.
Things move pretty quickly on the road. You need to have excellent skills sometimes to avoid what could have been a massive catastrophe. This truck was likely not well balanced, and making a slightly too sharp turn could have sent the whole thing toppling over. Fortunately, the person behind the wheel outmaneuvered gravity, riding the car right before the entire thing went falling over the sedan beside it. It was a close call, caught on camera, because just as a slightly slower response could have really meant catastrophe.
In 2016, clowns were all over the place. Like a Halloween prank gone on for too long, there were people dressed up in clown costumes causing chaos across almost every city. And if it wasn't creepy enough to see clowns running around, most of them would even stand behind parked cars, staring directly at the drivers in an attempt to scare them.
Actually, in 54 they are all with them. 47 or 441.
10-4.
This incident involved two of these clowns, standing eerily still on the sidewalk staring at a police cruiser. It looks like something straight out of a horror movie, and if it was any average person, they might have been able to accomplish their goal of scaring the pants off of them. But unfortunately for these two particular clowns, the officer was not having it. Even with the police lights flashing directly in their faces, these two clowns stuck to their roles, not moving a muscle. It wasn't until an officer asked to see their hands did they actually make some movements. But even then, they did it in such sync that it looked pre-planned. Eventually though, the two creepy clowns were taken out of frame as the officers proceeded with what looked like to be an arrest.
Guys, just make sure to keep your hands where we can see them, alright?
Alright, 217's on tape. 276.
Why don't you guys come up to this barrier right here? Go ahead and put your butts against it.
634.
Going to be on north at Buchanan with Wisconsin.
Driving visibility can mean life or death sometimes. As the dashcam sees it, this truck driver was inches from disaster. As the dashcam catches it, out of seemingly nowhere, two trucks driving in the opposite direction come barreling towards them. By some genius stroke of luck, they can maneuver right in between them, perfectly unharmed and safe. This is one of those things that you would never be able to describe to someone else. They wouldn't believe you. Luckily, they caught it on camera, so no one can question it.
This dashcam footage looks straight out of a post-apocalyptic world, because although the footage starts out normal, with the driver just navigating through traffic and driving while dusk is settling, something starts to make its way into the frame from the left corner. Just moments into the video, you can see a literal meteor soaring through the sky, taking up more and more space and inches closer and closer to the Earth, anticipating impact. And at one moment, the meteor lights up the entire sky, practically blinding the viewer as it starts hurtling down towards the ground. Fortunately, the meteor didn't end up killing anyone, and the few affected had only minor injuries. But that doesn't make the dashcam footage any less terrifying. And you can only imagine how the drivers on that street felt when they saw it all unfold in real time.
Though this is a fast clip, this looks less like dashcam footage and more out of a horror film. The person is walking down the road and catches a woman walking, clearly inebriated, in the middle of the road. Luckily, it's not a busy road, but the way she hobbles down the street feels uniquely undead, almost like she's a lost extra from a nearby zombie flick. She doesn't come after the driver, and the clip ends suddenly, but hopefully, she got somewhere safe soon.
When you're driving around in the middle of the night and everything around you is pitch black, I'm sure you're already going to be a bit freaked out. But once you see this dashcam footage, you might have a new fear. In the video, the driver's cruising down a highway late at night when he suddenly encounters a roadblock. There are two orange cones, one planted right in the middle of each lane. Slowly, you start to realize that the driver is not alone. On the right, pulled over by the side, there's a parked car with an individual standing beside it. Due to how dark everything is, you don't even get to catch a glimpse of the stranger's face. But the person approaches the driver ever so slowly, inching closer and closer to the passenger side door of the car.
What's going on?
Naturally, the driver felt suspicious about the entire situation and decided to hit the gas and drive in between the cones, passing the stranger and not looking back.
Can I help you with something?
Yes.
But what could have happened if he hadn't done that? This was clearly a deliberate attempt to get someone to stop. But why? What ill intentions did that mysterious stranger have?
While sitting in traffic, this cab driver's dash cam caught an attempted robbery. From one man's side, a man climbs into the car and points a weapon at the driver, demanding all his money.
Hey, give me all your money, man.
Man, I don't...
Give me everything you got. Give me that now.
All right.
I need it now.
All right.
He begins to threaten the driver, and things between them get heated. Suddenly, lights flash behind them, and as it turns out, a police officer fortunately caught the whole exchange from behind. The cop pulls the would-be robber out of the car and gets him disarmed. The timing couldn't have been better. The driver can tell the officer was there with a gun, and he handles it from there.
Police officers get into plenty of strange and dangerous scenarios while on the job. But even then, it's not often that a routine traffic stop escalates into something as serious as a kidnapping case. This officer was on regular patrol pulling over one of the cars when he started to realize that something was off about the situation. Whether it was his own instinct, the other driver's odd demeanor, or something else, the officer knew that he had to check on the trunk. Captured on the dash cam of his police cruiser, you can see the officer begin to approach the trunk of the car with his weapon held out in front of him for protection. When he opens it, he's shocked and disturbed to find a woman that was trapped inside. Quickly, he gets the woman out of the back of the car, already well aware of his next steps and the need to apprehend the driver. It turns out that the kidnapped woman was actually the culprit's mother, and she had already been stuck in the trunk of that car for about 5 hours at the time of this traffic stop. Needless to say, we don't know what other atrocities that the victim could have experienced if this officer hadn't found her when he did.
Admittedly, you'd never expect to catch something out of this world on your dash cam, and it seems like that's exactly what this woman stumbled upon. While driving down a local Texas highway, something unmistakable was hovering up above. It stays unmoving and suspended overhead. Impossible to tell what it is, but it was definitely not smoke, since that would have dissipated. A few other people caught the same thing, meaning it wasn't a single one-off camera error. The object is nothing more than a black smudge in the air. The object in this video doesn't seem to move. Theories range from an animal formation, a portal dimension opening up, to an unidentifiable spacecraft. There's no real explanation, leaving this strange sighting to be just that, strange.
This dashcam footage is a prime example of how it only takes a few seconds for things to go completely wrong. At the intersection of Route 70 and Colonial Drive in Manchester County, New Jersey, a power line had gotten stuck to a traffic light after a brutal storm. You can see that the storm had just passed, with the roads still wet and glistening from the rain. In the video, you can see someone in a fire suit or a hazmat suit of some sorts trying to untangle the line. It's obvious that they're struggling, as they continuously attempt to tug at the line in hopes of getting it away from the traffic light. But with such sudden movements, it's hard to pinpoint exactly where the line is going to go. So eventually, they do get the power line unstuck, but the outcome becomes much worse after that, because they end up dropping the power line onto the ground, where it makes contact with water. Unfortunately for the person fixing it, they clearly didn't know that the power line was active and live, because when the power line burst into flames, they immediately ran away in fear. Why no one would notify them of the power line status, no one knows. But if they were just a second too late in their reaction, They might have fallen victim to a sudden wildfire.
Nothing's more terrifying than losing a child, except maybe having your child found in the middle of the road. This young boy had managed to slip through an open door and ran directly out into oncoming traffic. Thankfully, the roads were clear and the patrol car caught him before anyone else did. But judging by how the little one was running, he had no idea the level of danger he might have been in had the circumstances been just a little bit different. The officer quickly manages to get out of his car and picks up the little one to get him to safety.
You never know when you might be caught up in a sticky situation, and that's exactly the case for this unsuspecting driver here, who was just cruising down the street when suddenly, the white car in front of him comes to a stop and several people hop out of the car. The footage is a bit blurry, but it looks like they have their arms out in front of them, possibly holding weapons. It seems like your usual holdup, but instead of the driver complying, they floor it. The perpetrators quickly try to dodge out of the way as it's clear that the driver has no intention of stopping or getting held up by them. The driver weaves in between all four of the people before driving straight into and through the white car's open passenger door. And they keep accelerating as they drive down the road, past the people, not daring to look back.
Most people dread the idea of being in even a minor fender bender. It comes with so many issues and stressors that it's better if you never had to deal with it. This dashcam, however, catches the moment as a squad car catches up to a fiery 9-car crash. As the officer drives up, you can see one of the trucks is on fire already. It does switch to the body cam as the trooper manages to go up to help some people out of their vehicles. The dash cam catches when firefighters have to put out the growing flames, and the body cam catches all the people who need to be pulled out of their cars.
You good? Just your head? All right, just sit there.
This is an absolute worst case scenario for some people. Though luckily, everyone was okay in this scenario. It's terrifying to imagine if things hadn't gone so smoothly, or if you drove up and weren't expecting carnage on I-75.
This dashcam clip looks nothing short of paranormal and went viral on social media with people claiming that this is a ghost apparition caught on camera. This event took place in Thailand, and the dashcam footage shows the driver on a highway in the middle of the night. But although the driver was heading down an empty road, something seemed to appear out of nowhere, so fast that if you blink, you might just miss it. For a few short seconds, a man dressed in a white shirt and blue pants seems to appear out of thin air, with no car or anything else for that matter in sight. And just as quickly as he appeared, he disappeared. The footage doesn't show any sign of the man walking away or making any movements, but he just vanishes completely from the video. And even if it was a person and not a ghost, there is still something disturbing about this video. Because if that was a real person, then that driver just drove right into them, without looking back. So if they weren't a ghost then, they might be one now.
What seems to be a routine traffic stop goes off the walls in a matter of moments. This officer approaches the vehicle as usual. Not even a second goes by and suddenly the other car is speeding off. He goes into the distance well before the police officer can even get back in his car, and it's so dark outside it's hard to see even a few hundred feet ahead. The officer speeds down the road and finally does catch up to the driver, who continues to try to get away. Most of us will never encounter what it feels like to be in a high-speed chase, so it's almost thrilling to be in the driver's seat as the officer expertly speeds down stretches of highway after the car. At one point, a body cam catches as they try to slow him down, and eventually they're able to get the interaction in their control. But for a bit, it really was touch and go.
Vehicle, got him stopped. 40 in custody.
When you're living in an area surrounded by mountains, hills, and slopes, you might think that you're prepared for the worst. But no one really knows what they would do until it happens to them, and most of the time, people don't expect it to happen to them. In this video from 2013, it's a rainy day in Taiwan. Nothing seems to be out of the ordinary as the driver passes by a McDonald's and continues on their way down the road, at a safe distance away from the car in front of them. And that'll be something that proves to be in their favor, as just moments later, sudden motion would come from the mountain to their right, and a deadly rock slide will make its way down the slope and onto the road. The dashcam shows the horrifying moments of impact, where the tiny rocks completely smother the car in front of them, splashing into the nearby puddles, and covering the camera in murky, muddy water. But that doesn't obstruct the view enough to stop the camera from capturing an absolutely insane moment: a gigantic boulder just inches away from the white car. If it had rolled down the hill any faster, it would have undoubtedly crushed the car and the driver completely. Fortunately, we get to see the driver of the car in front slowly get out of their vehicle as the driver with the dashcam backs up. They were able to escape their predicament, leaving the scene the moment they realized the coast was clear.
Another case of instant karma. This person was trying to get around an officer who was seemingly moving too slow, only to get immediately caught between the two cars.
187, 10-5, I was just rammed.
It turns the car over on its side, and they quickly realize that the driver inside is trapped. They have to break the window open to get inside.
Can't see.
Several officers are at the scene, trying to pry this impatient driver out of the car while keeping weapons pointed at him. The moment the driver is out, he tries jumping from the vehicle to escape, but he's outnumbered by quite a lot. Every cop seems to jump in at once, pinning the flight risk driver down and subduing him quickly.
When it comes to making a quick buck, people can come up with some pretty elaborate schemes. And this one incident in particular shows just how far some are willing to go and attempt to get what they want. In this video, the trucker is just carrying out his usual duties, driving down the highway at night, likely doing a delivery of some sort. But out of nowhere, what seems like a dozen people start running up to his vehicle, popping up out of the sidelines and hopping over the highway barrier. It looks like a zombie apocalypse with the way they are all running at the trucker. And with it being nighttime and the only light being the driver's headlights, that makes it all the more horrifying. Because what do you really do in a situation like this? That trucker's definitely feeling terrified. The hijackers even went as far as to put down tree branches in the road, trying to block off the road and leave the trucker trapped. As the video goes on, the trucker is fervently honking their horn, and you can even hear banging against the side of the truck, possibly from hijackers attempting to get inside and grab the goods.
How badly could a traffic stop go? Apparently, very. This dash cam shows a police officer approaching a car before catching the moments as the suspect attacks the officer, throwing him off. The officer struggles to get his bearings, and the two pull their weapons. The suspect runs and steals the police car to get away, driving through the city with no regard for traffic. This is dealt with as the suspect runs a red light and smashes directly into oncoming traffic. The dashcam catches the whole failed getaway from a first-person perspective, including the subsequent crash and damage to the vehicle. The suspect apparently tried to flee, but didn't get very far.
When it comes to police chases, they are nothing short of action-packed. With fast turns and sudden swerves, it gives the viewers whiplash just watching it. But it's not often that a police chase ends in something that isn't an arrest, or even a getaway, but a straight-up disappearance. This dashcam video shows the police in the middle of an intense chase with a vehicle not too far ahead. The car in question is like Vin Diesel behind the wheel, taking the cops for a wild chase filled with cross-lane turns and high-speed straights. But of course, the chase ultimately has to end. And when the car turns into a dead end blocked by a fence, the police are sure that they're about to catch their culprit. That is until the car completely evaporates into thin air, leaving no trace behind, and definitely no suspect for the police to capture. It's a story that's hard to believe. You can only imagine what the chief thought when the officers returned back to the police station and told them about what happened. If they hadn't caught it on dashcam, people might have thought it was just an excuse because they weren't able to catch the guy.
Sometimes it pays to have your dashcam on, even when you're not driving. This car owner was lucky enough to be in that situation, with his camera trained on the inside of his car while he worked out. The man who breaks into the car looks inside, checking what valuables he can find, and then disappears for a moment before busting the glass on the window and taking everything in sight. He moves quickly because he doesn't know how much time he has and manages to get away. He looks around, face entirely uncovered at this point, and while he doesn't seem to see the camera, it certainly sees him. You never know when you're being filmed. In today's world, cameras could really be anywhere.
When you watch this dashcam footage, you might be surprised to learn that this is actually a real recording and not something taken out of a movie. The absolute ruin that is surrounding the vehicle makes it seem like the car is quite literally driving through hell. In this video, the driver is attempting to make their way through the devastating Hennessy Fire in North California. Everything around them is completely engulfed in flames, and with no other way to go but forward, the driver has to force their way through the fire to try and make it unscathed to the other side. It looks straight up apocalyptic as the trees are burning and the debris tumbles down nearby mountains. Not to mention, the insane amount of smoke makes everything around hard to see unless they're lit up by the flames. As the driver continues making their way through the fire, the intensity of the smoke only increases, and the cars in front of him all seem to disappear as well, which makes you wonder where they went, or if they made it out safely. In another case of ghostly activities, this taxi driver in Japan had quite a scare when he looked back on his dashcam footage to see that he had picked up an unexpected guest during one of his work trips. In this dashcam footage, you can see the inside of the car, which is a pretty common thing for taxi drivers. You never know what sort of encounter you'll get whenever you pick up a passenger, but you never expect to catch a ghostly encounter on camera. As the driver goes about his route, you can see the shadow of a woman in the back of the car appear, disappear, and reappear multiple times. She's sitting eerily still in the middle of the back seat, not making a sound or any movements. And if that's not scary enough, as the footage keeps going, the woman transforms into more than just a shadow. She starts to take on a face, and she's staring straight ahead, no expression, just there for the ride. The dashcam footage shows the ghost in the back of the taxi going in and out of shadow, and a more human-like form, all while the taxi driver doesn't seem to notice at all. But we're sure it gave him a bit of a freak out when he watched it back.